You know, in the world of technology, and especially cybersecurity, there's this constant battle going on. And it's not against hackers, really. It's a battle against hype. Today, we're going to dig into that super fine line between celebrating real progress and falling for the next big thing that, well, never quite shows up.
I bet you've seen headlines just like this one. They're splashy, they're dramatic, and they promise this perfect, simple fix for a crazy complex problem. And for a second, it makes you feel like, wow, the future is finally here. But let's be real. How often do these game-changing breakthroughs actually live up to the hype? And maybe more importantly, what's the damage when they don't? That's exactly what we're going to unpack. So here's our game plan. We're going to look at how this hype machine gets built, what fuels it, and the real price we pay for it. Then we'll talk about a much better way to do things and, why being straight up about this stuff matters so much. Okay, let's dive into the core of the problem. You've got brilliant people in labs all over the world making actual progress. But that progress, it's almost never some big eureka moment. It doesn't look like one of those cool montages in the movies. Real innovation, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's about tweaking an algorithm, patching one little vulnerability, or making a detection model just a tiny bit better. Every single one of those steps is like laying another brick in a huge wall. The hype kicks in when someone tries to sell you that single brick as if it's the entire fortress. So why does this happen so often? Why does one small step get turned into this giant leap for mankind? Well, it turns out there's a whole system of incentives that kind of pushes everything in that direction. This trip from a careful fact to a wild headline follows a pretty predictable path. It all starts in the lab with a cautious, very specific finding. Then, to keep the funding coming, the results get a little polished. The press release then smooths over any leftover nuance, and by the time it gets to the media, that single brick is being sold as an impenetrable fortress that will solve everything. And the pressure, it's coming from all sides. Researchers need to get grants. The media needs to get clicks. Investors want to see a return on their money, and fast. Look, none of these are evil intentions on their own, but when you mix them all together, you get a perfect storm for exaggeration. Now, this might all seem kind of harmless, right? A little marketing sizzle. But the gap between the hype and the reality, it has really serious consequences. It's not just about being let down, it actually causes real damage. I mean, just look at this. When we're told some new tech is going to solve all our problems and then it doesn't, our trust doesn't just go back to where it started. No, it plummets. We get way more skeptical of the next thing that comes along, even if it's a genuine improvement. It creates this cycle of cynicism. And that damage just spreads. Money gets funneled into these flashy, overhyped projects instead of the slow, steady work that actually makes us safer. Policymakers start making decisions based on a totally wrong idea of what's possible, and the researchers themselves, they can just get completely burned out, tired of a culture that rewards sizzle more than substance. Okay, so we've pretty clearly laid out the problem. So what's the answer? Well, it's a shift in how we think about this, moving away from selling a finished product to sharing the messy process of learning. The new approach is actually pretty simple, but it's powerful. Instead of shouting about breakthroughs, we just talk about progress. Instead of promising a magic bullet, we explain the next step. And this is the big one. Instead of hiding the limitations, we talk about them openly. This isn't about downplaying what you've done. It's about being honest about it. This brings us to this core idea, credible learning. Really, it's about playing the long game. The goal isn't to get one giant headline. It's to build a real foundation of trust with everyone, the public, funders, policymakers, so that when real progress does happen, people will actually believe you. All right, so why should you, someone who might not be working in a cyber lab, actually care about any of this? Because this whole issue has a direct line to our everyday world. When hype is what's driving the decisions, we end up with security products that don't really work, policies that miss the mark, and a public that's either totally freaked out or way too complacent about the real threats out there. Honest communication, that leads to better tech and smarter decisions for all of us. Let's face it, we are just bombarded with information, with claims and promises all day, every day. To cut through all that noise, we need a commitment to credibility. It's really the only way we can figure out what's real and solve the massive challenges we're facing. And that's where I want to leave you today. I want you to chew on this question. The next time you see some headline about a massive tech breakthrough, what's the first thing you're going to ask? Maybe it'll be, okay, but what are the limitations, or what's the actual next step here?
By arming ourselves with a little healthy skepticism, we can all become smarter about the tech we use and the news we consume. And we can help build a more honest conversation about where we're headed. Thanks for tuning in.